Afternoon, everyone. I call this meeting to order. We welcome to meeting number 107 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs. We recognize that we meet on the unceded and traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, the committee is meeting to study Nutrition North Canada. And just as we get underway today, now that we're in session, I'd like to remind everybody, both in the room and anybody online, that photos are not allowed from this point until we adjourn. And we have a couple of points related to avoiding audio feedback that I'll take us through as well. So we're trying to create a safe workplace for our staff, particularly our interpreters. And so we have a new system in place. There are headsets here. You'll have to plug them in. We ask people when they're not using their headsets to place them earpiece down on the dots that are the circles that you put on the table. You can select either floor, which is the language being spoken, English or French. English is channel 1, French is channel 2. There's audio controls there. You don't have to touch the buttons. We have a team over on our left that will turn your microphones on and off. And the big thing is making sure that you don't take, when the red light is on, that a microphone does not go anywhere near the microphone. That's what can cause the audio feedback. And so we just try to ask everybody to be very aware of that. So that's the kind of introduction here. Now, we have some witnesses for our first hour, and I'd like to thank all of you for making yourselves available to be here with us. Representatives from that we have include from Calm Air International, Gary Bell, President and Chief Executive Officer. Okay, Mr. Bell, welcome. From Canadian North, Shelley DeCaria, President and Chief Executive Officer. And if I mess up anybody's names, you can correct me when you take the floor. From Kemet Cooperative, Jean-Pierre Goulet, General Manager. And from Northwest Company, Dan McConnell, Chief Executive Officer. Now, I understand everybody will have 5 minutes for their opening statement. I use a handy card system here, so when there's 30 seconds left, I'll give you the yellow card. When the time's up, I'll give you the red card. Don't stop mid-sentence, but finish up your thoughts. And the same thing when we get into the rounds of the questions. Some of the members like to push the clock, and so I'll be giving the cards to them as well. They tend to look towards the witnesses, so if the witnesses are mid-sentence, just kind of wind up your thought, and then we'll move on to the next round of questions. So with that, I don't know if anybody had wanted to go first. I have the order Calm Air, Canadian North, Kemet Cooperative, and Northwest Company. So if you're good with that round order, then we'll go, Mr. Bell, to you first. And when you're ready, the floor is yours for your 5-minute opening statement.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and honorable members of the committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present today. I am pleased to join you in my capacity as President and CEO of Calm Air. A regional airline established in 1962, Calm Air now provides essential scheduled passenger and cargo services to 19 communities across central Nunavut and northern Manitoba. Operating 15 aircraft and employing 600 Canadians, including 150 Inuit and First Nations, Calm Air also provides charter services across North America. At Calm Air, we know we are an essential part of the communities we serve. We take our responsibility very seriously and do business as a responsible and conscientious community partner. For instance, of interest with respect to the study, we allow all Inuit beneficiaries in our network to ship locally harvested food, called country food, for free within our scheduled network. With that context, I would like to share the following with the committee for consideration. First, Calm Air is not a direct participant in the Nutritious North Canada program. We appreciate that a considerable amount of the cargo we handle is food, and we prioritize that movement of that cargo accordingly, but we price all freight consistently. In that way, the cost to ship food is no different than the cost to ship other essential cargo like medical supplies, industrial material, or household goods. Second, we know that getting freight transported quickly and efficiently across our network is vital in meeting our commitment to the communities we serve. Calm Air transports over 25 million pounds of freight annually, and we've made significant investments to make sure we're delivering on time. Key measures we've implemented include we've specifically modified our aircraft to be combi or combination aircraft that allows us to transport passengers and palletized freight on the same flights. This both subsidizes the freight through cost sharing with passenger sales and allows us to increase frequencies into smaller markets. We've also built a series of climate-controlled warehouses across our network in Nunavut that allows us to fly freight 24 hours a day, gives customers the opportunity to pick up their goods at times that are convenient to their schedule, and allows us to recover operations much more quickly in the event of weather disruptions. Third, we are deeply concerned with affordability. We know that part of providing the reliable service Calm Air provides or prides itself is our obligation to ensure people can access our services from a price perspective. Right now, Calm Air's prices on freight are among the lowest in the Arctic, and our cargo business is not one of our profit drivers. We approach freight with a mind to finding a balance between offering affordable services and making sure our business remains sustainable. And finally, while some of the cost drivers associated with freight services to the north, like specialized equipment or the fact that very little cargo comes south, so the freight will need to bear the cost of traveling both ways, are problems you would expect to see in remote destinations, most of which are driving the cost today, but might not be apparent simply by looking at our route map. The costs associated with operating aircraft have risen exponentially, far outpacing even the elevated levels of inflation we see day to day. Fuel, labor rates, parts, and maintenance are all costs that have risen significantly in the wake of the disruption caused by the pandemic. But perhaps most importantly for this committee, government policy decision made without proper consideration for the realities of life in the North also drive cost. For instance, Transport Canada's use of the user pay principle disadvantages remote destinations where there are few residents to soak up the cost burdens of aviation infrastructure. Apply this to a carton of milk. That carton, when shipped, doesn't just cover the cost of the plane. It covers the cost of the plane, both airports, and all of these service providers in between. Changes to the pilot fatigue requirements in December of 2019 mean that we have had to add additional costs, being pilots, and change how we schedule airline service. And finally, Canada's carbon tax has also increased fuel costs in certain remote destinations. In conclusion, Calm Air prides itself on being a responsible partner in Canadian North's ecosystem. We are equally willing to work closely with government on policy solutions that keep aviation services in the North, including the shipment of food, sustainable for all. Again, thank you for your invite here today, and I appreciate any questions you will have.
Thank you, Mr. Bell, for your opening statements, and just under the 5-minute mark, so appreciate that. We'll go to Canadian North next, and so Ms. Correa, I'll let you give the proper pronunciation.
Shelley Beccaria, thank you.
Okay, thank you. When you're ready, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Ulukut itzivauta ammalu katingayi. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to address this committee today regarding the vital role of cargo delivery, particularly food transport in the Canadian Arctic. Inatuinaw sunga inulik simayunga piroksataw simatsungalu ukyuktatu nunalingani kutjuame. As an Inuk born myself, born and raised in northern community of Kuujjuaq, I understand more than many what it means to struggle because of lack of access to affordable food. As a child, I remember the hardship and strain it caused, and most of all, I remember going to bed hungry. As you know, the issue is disproportionately worse in the north than anywhere else in this country, with rates of household food insecurity reaching 17, 22, 35, and 57% in the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, Nunavik, and Nunavut, respectively. At Canadian North, we know that we not only provide a service, our aircraft's touching down is seen by many as a lifeline in northern communities. In short, what we provide is an essential service. Our commitment to this essential service is unwavering, even in the face of unprecedented financial and logistical challenges. First and foremost, it's important to note that our operations in the Canadian Arctic are not subsidized. I'll repeat, we get zero subsidies under the Nutrition North program. We are merely a conduit for grocery and retail companies who are receiving those NNP subsidies to get their products on the northern store shelves. Because of that, we must set rates that not only cover the cost of delivering cargo, including food, but allow for a minimum margin. Generally, I can say it is no more than 1%. While NNP subsidies have been increasing, for us at Canadian North, our margins continue to shrink. Over the past 2 years, we've encountered significant cost increases, particularly in workforce retention and training, as well as fuel, infrastructure costs, key equipment purchase, and maintenance. These challenges are exacerbated by strict and limiting conditions on us due to the original combination of Canadian North and First Air. Despite these constraints, we continue to comply with regulations and strive to operate efficiently while prioritizing serving the needs of our northern communities. But as many of you are aware, operating in the north comes with its own set of unique challenges. Inconsistent and insufficient airport infrastructures, like undersized gravel runways. Air navigation support is unreliable primarily because of dangerously low staffing shortages, and on top of it all, there is a fuel supply shortage. And these are just a few examples of what we are facing. Moreover, our operations are frequently impacted by unpredictable weather conditions, darkness, freezing cold, whiteout snowstorms, and more, all of which can delay deliveries for days at a time and an average of 175 cancellations a month. While we acknowledge the importance of the Nutrition North program, we do not have any direct knowledge into how it's utilized by retailers to reduce food costs for northern residents. What we do know is the subsidy is intended to benefit Inuit and the communities we serve directly, and yet we have seen mounting concerns in the inadequate in offsetting the skyrocketing cost of food and food transportation. Something just isn't right. I will wrap up my time by saying the challenges we face in delivering essential cargo to communities across Canadian Arctic are multifaceted and complex. Still, we remain committed to providing this essential service to our communities. But I urge the committee to consider the unique circumstances and constraints we operate under. Collaborative efforts between government, industry, and stakeholders are essential to address these challenges and ensure the well-being of all northern residents. We at Canadian North often say we are committed to make life better in the communities that we serve. Personally, I think this should be the commitment made by everyone here today. Nakukmi, uhalimakititoke nagamat. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your opening comments there. Next, we'll go to Mr. Goulet. When you're ready, the floor will be yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I represent Kimik Co-op based in Kimirut, formerly known as Lake Harbor.
Having a business in the Arctic is one thing, but operating it is very complicated. Operating costs are disproportionately big compared to an operation in the south. Electricity costs 55 cents per kilowatt. Here you're paying 10, 20. Water at $90 cubic meter to operate your company. Here it's maybe $2 to $5. No way of having dual energy sources to help the company out. Maintenance costs are extreme, really extreme. Staff shortage, local qualified staff shortage, electricians, plumbers, other trades is another issue. And you have to bring everything in by plane. Insurance has tripled due to our location. Over the past 3 years, we've gone from $4,500 to $14,000 per month in insurance. The cost of maintaining the NNC program and having Northerners benefit from the subsidy is our obligation, and it's a pleasure for us. We receive the money and we transfer it to the customers. But for that to happen, we need a system that meets the needs and the requirements of the NNC program. It's unfortunately not every IT tool that has this capacity. That is very limiting. Now, when you find a piece of software that is capable of that, you have to have it maintained, you have to receive updates, so there are associated costs. And these costs are not covered by the NNC program. And we've also had new commerce online. You have online companies with either very cheap shipping or or free shipping, and they are looking to capture market share, but we are having to pay delivery fees to airline companies. Customers have a minimal capacity of paying. Of course, they want to stretch their money as much as they can, and the cheapest is sometimes what they choose. And that also puts upward pressure on food prices. Sales volume goes down every month. It's not that consumers are eating less, but they are purchasing online. An online store that operates out of Ottawa, Montreal, or Winnipeg, they don't have the same operational costs. As I mentioned, we have to cover these costs, but they don't. So the NNC program has to take these realities into account and maybe bring changes to the program in terms of the amounts made available to the merchants in the north. We understand that air freight is subject to very strict regulation. Transport Canada is in charge of that, whatever is being transported. But it still remains a fact that it is hard to get supplies as we speak. And flights are cancelled because of weather, sometimes 10-15 minutes before a plane lands, and then the planes come in empty with one person with no cargo on board. So we're asking ourselves the question to know whether the system is really efficient. I would like to thank you for your attention and for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Merci. Lastly, we'll hear from Mr. McConnell from Northwest Company for the opening 5-minute statements. When you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you to the committee members for your invitation. The Northwest Company is committed to working with parliamentarians to address persistently high food costs in the North. We're pleased to be here. The Northwest Company is Canada's primary retailer serving northern and remote communities. We also operate stores in southern Canada, including some under the Giant Tiger brand, and we serve communities in Alaska, the South Pacific, and the Caribbean. We're more than just a store. We are our primary source of employment and a major economic partner in the places that we operate. We're here to discuss Nutrition North. However, we must put it into context. The Nutrition North program is an important lifeline for reducing grocery costs by providing a consumer subsidy through retailers like Northwest. However, it does not fix the underlying infrastructure and supply chain issues that cause high costs in the first place, nor does it address inflation. Communities receiving year-round Nutrition North retail subsidies do not have year-round road, rail, or marine access. Most of these communities lack port facilities and appropriate mooring infrastructure, warehouses, and other basic logistics infrastructure. Most do not have paved runways, hangars, or sufficient airport weather services. Because of the historic lack of investment in northern infrastructure, these communities are isolated from the global supply chain, making them harder to reach and more difficult to serve. These communities must rely on service by air, and where possible, we take advantage of the limited number of sea lift deliveries arriving in each community in the summer and the short duration of winter roads to resupply staple goods at the lowest possible cost. We work with a few transportation companies serving these communities. At the best of times, the state of infrastructure in the Arctic and remote Indigenous communities makes supplying our stores challenging and costly. Weather and environmental challenges sometimes make it almost impossible. For example, after wildfires devastated the Northwest Territories in 2023, subsequent droughts on the Mackenzie River disrupted our ability to barge goods in to the Western Arctic. Close to 10% of our scheduled flights are canceled due to weather. 60% of pre-takeoff cancellations occur because community airports do not have sufficient de-icing capability. Melting permafrost is putting infrastructure at risk, shortening ice road season, damaging runways, and creating other challenges that drive up the costs of operating in the north. There are other high operational costs in the north that Nutrition North is not designed to subsidize. These include high costs of energy, which in Iqaluit is almost 6 times more than in Winnipeg, and other utility costs like water. There is a lack of both heated and cold storage warehousing available to rent, which limits how much we can store at any one given time. The cost of building in the north is substantially higher than the south. Site maintenance costs in the north are 3 to 5 times higher than in the south. The Nutrition North program improves the accessibility of healthy foods and significantly reduces the cost of nutritious food in our stores. However, it does not fix the underlying inflationary issues that drive retail prices, such as fuel or cost of goods. The Nutrition North subsidy lacks the investment needed to keep in pace with inflation, and as a result, its positive impact has eroded. The subsidy, however, remains impactful. It still has the ability to efficiently lower prices for consumers. For example, because of the Nutrition North subsidy, a 4-liter jug of milk is $4.09 in Oxford House, Manitoba. Without the subsidy, it would be $18.28. In Arctic Bay, Nunavut, it is $6.49 instead of $61.32. For reference, where I live in Winnipeg, it costs $5.59. We understand the members have questions about how the subsidy is passed along to Northerners. In our NNC eligible stores, the subsidy is applied to eligible items at the appropriate subsidy level. Our shelf tags reflect the retail price of goods inclusive of the subsidy, and the value of the subsidy for items purchased is printed on each customer receipt. So I want to further emphasize that the full value of the subsidy is passed on to our customers. We are independently audited by Canada and consistently found in compliance with the program's directive to pass along the entire subsidy to our customers. Our pricing team provides Government of Canada with over 83,000 detailed item-level records each month, and we are subject to random audits each month from the claims processor. We take our commitments to our customers, transparency and accountability very seriously, and we want to leave the members with one main message, that the North requires significant attention and investment. We are your partner in Northern Development, and we look forward to any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we're going to get into our first round of questions, and the first 4 questions are 6 minutes each, and from the Conservatives, we'll have Mr. Zimmer up first for his 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to you folks for coming to I-9 Committee today to talk about Nutrition North and food costs. I know one of you mentioned that you were from Nunavut, and I've been up there and saw them firsthand, some of the crazy food prices. It's insane. You mentioned some of the food prices yourself and what the subsidy is supposed to make more affordable, I guess, for people that live in the north. But I guess for me, it's still a question about a lack of food security, right? That's the end of the day. There's somebody in Nunavut or somebody in the territories that's left hungry because the job's simply not getting done. From a recent article, these high food prices combined with limited economic opportunities and high rates of poverty have led to Northern Canada having the highest rates of food insecurity in the country. It's incredible. Almost half of all Nunavut households are moderately or seriously food insecure. And from another document, this is from Nunavut Food Security Coalition, nearly 70% of Inuit homes in Nunavut are food insecure. That means that 70% of Nunavut families are basically going hungry every day. It's incredible. Again, this rate is one of the highest rates for an Indigenous population in a developed country in the world. Like, it's again, don't need to state it all over again. But I'm going to ask you a question based on affordability. And Gary, you mentioned the costs that part of the cost of being so expensive is fuel costs. And your airlines, you provide the food, you get the food to the communities. And we also have things called sea lifts to get the food up there, et cetera. But I'm going to ask you individually, Shelley, Dan, and Gary, has the carbon tax made food more affordable or more expensive in the north? We'll start over here.
I speak about the CPI that we've experienced here in Canada, but it doesn't encounter what the aviation CPI has done to our airlines.
But my time's really tight,
Yes,
so
sorry.
just it's a simple kind of yes or no.
No.
Has it made food more expensive? Has it made food more affordable, or has it made food more expensive?
I don't have visibility on how this Nutrition North program is being done.
This is
because-
about fuel costs, though, and you as an airline would know that carbon tax gets added to the bill, right? I've talked to Micah McBride from Buffalo Airways. He said carbon tax is a huge addition in cost to us when we buy huge amounts of fuel. So it's really a simple question. Has your fuel become cheaper, or is it more expensive?
It hasn't become cheaper.
There you go. So we'll go to Dan.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like every other cost pressure for a northern customer. It's definitely caused food to be more expensive.
Gary.
Exception of Nunavut, which is carbon tax exempt, it's been more expensive throughout northern Canada.
Right. So, and we know that even Nunavut is still affected by the carbon tax because sea lifts come up by ship, and that ship fuel is not exempted from the carbon tax. Carbon tax applies. I'm going to ask you, Gary, just a bit more, expand about how much that carbon tax actually costs airlines in the north. How much does the carbon tax affect your food transportation costs per year or per month? And we talked a little bit before about, I don't know if that's the number that you have on hand, but maybe give us an idea of what the actual costs of carbon tax are to flights of food and materials to the north.
So right now, the cost on the carbon tax for the locations that it applies is about a 15% increase on the price of fuel.
Okay, so give us a number, that person that either is going in the airline or maybe, because we need to know the number in terms of dollars. So per flight, give us like an average flight from Winnipeg to maybe a destination of your choice. How much would that add to the cost of that particular trip, just the carbon tax extra cost?
So from Winnipeg to Churchill, the cost increased on that flight would be about $2,000.
$2,000. And who bears the cost of that $2,000?
Initially, it's us as an airline, but we're having to pass it on to our consumers. And so whether it's the food or tourism or medicals, it's all being passed along.
Right. So to me, how much time, Chair? 15. So what to me is a bit striking by what you said there is at a time that food is even more expensive than normal, we see the 70% of people are going hungry in Nunavut as the example. We see a government that after 9 years, it's not gotten better. We see after 9 years, then they're applying a carbon tax, and it's gone up April 1st, and it's going to continue to rise. How much is that carbon tax going to continue to rise? I think go ahead, Gary.
I understand that it's just over 20 cents a liter right now, and I expect it to go to over 40 cents a liter by 2030.
So the amount per trip from Winnipeg to Churchill was how much? $2,000?
About $2,000 more now.
So when it rises again to 44, it's going to be $4,000 per trip. So does that make, I mean, it's an obvious question, does that make food less expensive or more expensive?
More.
Right. So here we're setting records globally about food costs in the north, and we have a government that still wants to slap on another carbon tax and further punish northerners. It's a shame. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that's the end of the 6 minutes. Good timing. We're going to go next to Mr. McLeod, I believe, or Mr. Mapolowski, and they're going to share your time.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Mapolowski, we'll go to you first for 6 minutes, and we'll see where that
Mr.
goes.
McConnell, Mr. Goulet, you've been asked about the added cost of fuel due to carbon tax, but certainly other things have caused the cost of foods to go up, the global supply situation, both in terms of food but also in terms of fuel because of the war in Ukraine, supply chain issues coming out of COVID, pent-up demand, and there was a recent article by a whole number of economists addressing this issue, how much of inflation is due to the carbon tax, and they all almost universally attributed the percentage of the increased cost due to carbon tax as being pretty minimal. What is your estimation as to how much carbon tax is contributing to the increased prices of food that you're seeing in the northern communities?
Would you like to go?
I can go. Thank you for the question. At our level, as we are the last barrier to take a margin on the product.
Sorry, I'm just going to stop for a second. Are we having an audio problem?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask if our witness could speak into the mic. He's got his mic.
Yeah, if you could just swing the boom a bit closer, that'll help
challenge
with
here.
the, okay, perfect. Thank you. I'd stop the clock, so we'll pick it up.
Apologies. A store is the last frontier before the customer. So all the costs that are coming down on us are mostly built in. Now, for sure, if there's a carbon tax fee built in the freight, there's not a separate line saying this is carbon tax. It's not like a GST. So for us, we don't see it, but if it come by sealift, yes, there's a carbon tax built in. The cost of sealift will go higher, maybe from 75 cents a pound to 85 cents a pound. If the airline fuel in Ottawa, if there's a carbon tax to come to Iqaluit, it will have an impact. But there's a multiple other little fee that adds up that are imposed by other organizations, such as Transport Canada. And this impacts the bottom line, the cost.
Mr. McConnell, my understanding is that for transportation in the territories, they're exempt from the carbon tax as well. Is that so? So again, your estimation as to how much increase?
I don't have an estimation, unfortunately, for you, but I will say your comments are correct. There's a lot of inflationary pressures all across the business, of which the carbon tax is one of them. I don't have the prorated amount of which the contribution is from the carbon tax, but there's a number of inflationary pressures on the business that we're managing.
Mr. McConnell, I lived for a few years in Norway House and shopped regularly at the Northern Store, which I kind of liked. I mean, it's the only place you could really buy food. But certainly the impression is, by anybody who lives in those places, well, you guys have the monopoly. There's really no competition. What's to stop you basically charging whatever you want? And I would note, it's been well reported that grocery stores throughout Canada have had record profits this year. Has your company had the same sort of increase in profits? And what keeps your prices low?
It's a good question. So, no, we haven't had record profits. I'll say, even if you're going back and you go to my first quarter, we've always taken a balanced approach on passing through the cost to the consumers, given the relationship that we do have with our customers. There is a lot of competition, albeit Jean-Pierre talked about some of the out-shopping, some of the e-commerce opportunities, as well as there's a lot of local operators, whether it be co-ops or local independent grocers. It's really the long-term relationship that we have with our consumers. We are publicly traded. We're very transparent with the market as far as what our margins are, and I could say that they're equitable to those of other retailers, keeping in mind that our business is global, and so there is a lot of puts and takes, and I would say that it's the relationship with our customer, it's the commitment we have with the community through our promise. And you can see that it's a very transparent process because our financials are are listed online for anybody to see.
Are your profit margins in the north any different from your profit margins in the other areas, like you mentioned, Giant Tiger, other places you served?
We don't break it out, but I would say depending on the same types of business have similar type margins. So for example, the traditional grocer versus the warehouse clubs, which is what we operate in other markets, would be aligned.
So your profits in the Canadian North aren't any larger than they are anywhere else, I take it?
It depends on the business. Again, we don't break it out, but I'd say our margins, which is the first question, is there's an alignment amongst the same type of concept business.
30 seconds. I guess I can ask the same question to Shelley and Mr. Bell as to your competitors and the perception that you have a monopoly and therefore you can charge basically what you want. If you want to just address that in 10 seconds. You're probably gonna say
We
no,
were
it's not true.
under restrictions with the merger of Canadian North and First Air, so we didn't have any say in what we can do for the last 5 years. Those have been changed because of what's happened in the last few years with the pandemic, pilot shortages, but for 4 years we were under conditions with nothing that we can change.
We'll now go to Monsieur Lemire. Vous avez 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Goulet, could you explain to us the place of members within your cooperative? What role do they play? And do you offer discounts to members of your communities, for instance? Thank you for the question. Yes, we offer discounts. As I mentioned, the NNC program subsidy is passed on at 100% to customers. We offer 5%, 10% discounts on a number of items. We are a cooperative, or rather a cooperative in a village becomes or serves as the lungs of that community, if you will. It's the lifeline. A member, just like any other customer, comes to our locations and they purchase their items. But our difference is that we're going to give back to our members. At the end of the year, we give back a certain percentage of the profits they get. It gets redistributed to them. That sets us apart. We have to keep members engaged, but we have price pressure in the north that is a lot higher compared to prices in the south due to operational costs, maintenance costs. It really quickly and easily goes out of control. I find your example very inspiring. You seem to be finding solutions, very respectful solutions. So please tell us what kind of infrastructure investments you are required to make to increase your capacity, because prices go up and there is something that doesn't function over the past certain number of years. Everything is more expensive now. So how can you reimagine, if you will, the return on investment? Because if you want to take families out of poverty, we have to do something that benefits the entire community. So what can you do to ensure your sustainability? Ensuring our sustainability, well, that would take better logistics to get supplies in. Without this logistical system, the fresh goods no longer arrive in a fresh state. So a lot of fresh produce goes to the dump. So we don't bring ice cream over, for instance, because it arrives melted. Cold chain is very hard to maintain at our locations. Now, our cooperative doesn't only sell, we also help the community through different programs with artists, for instance. They come to our locations, they purchase certain items, or they can sell items and they can continue their activities. But to make sure we are sustainable, we need a better logistics system. Canadian North doesn't have planes. We have to go through a subcontracting company, but the airline company doesn't have airplanes to serve our locations. Occupying the territory, is that an essential value or is it being forgotten? Because if you want to occupy the territory, use the territory, of course, that gives us certain advantages in terms of our sovereignty. Living in the north is not a luxury, but the government has to make sure that every citizen has a similar quality of life, no matter where they live in the country. But what kind of message would you like to send to the government on that front? Living in the north is a privilege. It is really a privilege to be in the nature, and it is hard to access due to the current state of the infrastructure. We are lacking infrastructure in terms of quantity. There's a lot of development work to be done. Maybe for financial reasons, a lot of that work isn't being done. So how do you improve that? Once again, with better logistics, air logistics. If you give us the connections, we will grow. Are there solutions for you that would respect the community more? For instance, for Indigenous communities, can you help harvesters to have access to technical services so that they can maintain equipment, refrigeration equipment, for instance, in good state, or community kitchens, or through other practices? Is there anything that can be done to enhance traditional practices? Because these communities are usually very generous with the game they hunt. So how can you empower more these networks in the north? We need infrastructure. We need buildings to house these sorts of organizations so that they can develop, and as they develop, then that will in turn strengthen the relations between the members of the cooperative, and that will bring a lot of harmony. But once again, that takes infrastructure, refrigeration, buildings, and more technical staff. So there's a lot of development work to be done. Thank you very much. Okay, as the chair isn't here, I'll be able to carry on. So how can regions develop services to produce vegetables, for instance, in the communities, greenhouse vegetable production, for instance? Should the government contribute to such programs? Because as we speak, such subsidy programs do not exist for agriculture infrastructure. Would that be something that would be beneficial? Thank you very much.
So, taking advantage of there, that's anyway, Ms. Idley, it's over to you now for your 6 minutes.
And thank you to all the witnesses for appearing today on this really important issue. I'm going to be asking my first set of questions to Mr. McConnell. And if you could please keep your responses brief, as we have very limited time. My first question to you is, what is your salary?
My salary? My salary is, it's also listed in our information circular. So I would advise you, if you'd like to see it, you can go and you can see that online.
Okay.
I don't have it offhand.
Can you please provide it to the committee?
Absolutely.
How much in bonuses did you get this fiscal year?
That would also be upon the same document that I'd be happy to provide you. It's a public document you can get online.
Yes, if you could please provide it to the committee. What is the average salary of a cashier in Iqaluit?
Again, I'd be able to get back to you with that information.
Can you please provide it to the
definitely
committee? The Northwest Company posted a gross profits over $205 million. On the Nutrition North's website, they said that they've spent $145 million on Nutrition North. I understand that the Northwest Company has received about $67 million with the Nutrition North program. How do you justify the profits that you received over the subsidies that you received as well?
Okay, thank you for that question. So first of all, that is a net, that's before taxes and that's before interest. But nonetheless, it is also through our entire company, that is the profit for the entire company. And it's not, you mentioned that it's from the subsidies, that we'll address that in just a moment. But I can tell you, in addition to that, we've invested $125 million in.
I'm asking about the subsidy and the profits. How do you justify?
They're not connected, though, and respectfully. They're not connected at all. Because the profits are before taxes and interest, and the profits also come from the global company. And the subsidies, I guess I can answer the question by saying the subsidies are actually 100% passed through to the customer. So there's no correlation between the two. And I would just say, as the profit, you said, how do you justify the profit? The profit is one thing, but then we invest $125 million in the business. And this is into the infrastructure of, a lot of which goes into the infrastructure of Northern Canada to make lives better within the communities that we serve.
I do apologize.
That's okay.
I do need to
No problem.
interrupt.
No problem.
Because reports are being shown that actually not 100% of the subsidy is going to the consumers from the Northwest Company. Only 67 cents of the dollar is going to the consumers, which is completely unacceptable. I have a question for you. I was in Kimirut last March.
Okay.
In one day, I visited both the Kimik Co-op and the Northern Store. And in the Kimik Co-op, the price of a dozen eggs was $3.99. I think they're using the subsidy appropriately. In that same day that I went to the Northern Store, I went to and the price of eggs at that store was $6.49. How do you justify that you're using the subsidy properly, where you can see a huge $3 difference in just the price of eggs?
See, I would like to see that differential because our prices are actually very strong, and we do look to lead prices locally. I don't know about that particular instance, but I could tell you that it has no reflection on the fact that we absolutely pass on 100% of the subsidy, and we do pride ourselves on trying to continue to bring cost of products down in stores every day. Everybody within our organization, they come to work every day to bring down the costs in order to pass that value on to the consumers. And that's something that our company is our mission, and it's a passion of which we work with every day. I can't comment on that particular item, but I would be very interested to see that because it's not typically the case.
I saw it as a pattern, and I've been to every of my 25 communities that I represent, and whenever there was a co-op and a Northern Store, there was always a price difference. It was always the co-op that always made sure that they were using the program appropriately to make sure that those prices were going down. Always, every time, the Northern Store's prices were much higher. I do have a question for Mr. Goulet, and thank you for appearing. I do remember that when I was in Kimirut, I was shocked by the stories that I heard by the co-op, which I felt very strongly about because there were about 9,000 kilograms in products that were stuck in storage in Iqaluit. And I wonder if you can explain to that the impact of what that means for the whole community of Kimirut when there are fresh produce that is not able to land in your community.
Thank you for the question, MP Idlut. Yes, if I recall, at the time of your visit, we had about 9,000 kg of food sitting in the end of the air carrier. This morning, with about 3,500, still constantly. The slate is never clean. The impact is a direct pressure onto the price. It becomes to a point where the shelves are empty. Empty shelves mean no food. I remember some time when the whole town had no milk. The whole town had no bread. And it just put the price higher and higher because we incur losses. And claiming, as we've been told, is nice, but it's not an option. It doesn't fix the issue. Tema.
That's the end of the 6 minutes. We'll move now to our shorter round. And first up, we have Mr. Schmale, who will have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses. Mr. Bell, you had talked earlier about the price that is added from the carbon tax on fuel on an average flight. About $2,000 is now paid for in the carbon tax. And one thing I guess we didn't talk about earlier is the carbon tax applied to the farmers, to the truckers, to get it to your planes, the warehousing. We didn't even talk about that. The consumers that had to pay carbon tax on their home heating, et cetera, et cetera. This is a massive cost of living component that is just being overlooked, unfortunately, by this government and the people who are suffering because of this. Their lives are getting more miserable because their disposable income is getting eaten up day after day because of the crippling taxes that this government enjoys placing on top of them. Having said all of that, you also mentioned, and it was just a quick half second almost, pilot hours. So we have on one side costs being jacked up by this government. On another side, we're having pilot hours being restricted. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that, please.
Thank you for your question. So in December of 2019, Transport Canada changed the flight duty fatigue regulations. And this was largely to counter some of the major airlines who were not counting the time of deadheading pilots, which means the time that they're on board as a passenger going to their destination as to start their flying. I know that Canadian North and ourselves and most of the other airlines in Canada do count the duty day as soon as that pilot reports. Unfortunately, because of this change in that policy, it's had a devastating effect on our amount of time that we have to fly every day. It often means that you can't do a second flight. You won't have enough duty day time for it. Or if there's a delay because of fog or weather in the morning, the pilots, because of that delay, often don't have a chance to do a trip to a lot of our high Arctic communities. So for us, that cost has been substantial. When we look through our network, it's in the neighborhood of 15% on our flight ops costs already. So it's a substantial increase due to that policy change.
And the carbon tax was about 20% on the average flight, you said, from
I think it's
Winnipeg
about
to Churchill?
15% on that cost of fuel.
15. So that's a significant price is just built in servicing government taxes and regulations.
Correct.
Now, based on the fact that we're now seeing carbon tax being charged to people trying to heat their homes, obviously you don't know exactly everything that, I'm sure you can have an idea of what's moved in your flights. Are you seeing a reduction in the amount of fresh food being placed on your planes as people compensate, unfortunately, for the increased cost of living that is causing people to make choices looking for higher calorie items rather than the fresh, probably more expensive in some cases, but those items on the shelves?
I think that's a great question, and Jean-Pierre mentioned earlier that a lot of the times people were ordering less of the produce and vegetables and that healthy food and buying other product instead, your rices or pastas or those kind of items instead. So, we don't break our product down in terms of every single category like that, but we certainly have seen overall a shift away from some of the produce and the vegetables into other categories because they're too expensive.
So with the pilot situation, obviously we have a pilot shortage, so I guess wages are increased as a result because there are more positions than there are people to pay. There are increased in airport fees. I think one of you said in your comments earlier. So that's another government-imposed fee. NAV Canada fees went up as well. How much did that go up?
30%, and it's only
30%.
gone down 6% this year.
Wow. Okay. So we have more taxes increased, more fees, more regulations, more rules. Okay. Give us a simple solution to this pilot problem.
We would say instead of restricting the pilot duty day, simply change to have all pilots, as soon as they report for duty, that's when their duty day starts, instead of changing the amount of hours that they can operate in a day.
Now, this is, oh,
The 5.
sorry.
Okay, that's the end of the 5. We'll now move now to Mr. McLeod for his 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for joining us here today to talk about Nutrition North. I represent the Northwest Territories, and I certainly recognize the cost of freight and travel in Northwest Territories. I received a copy of a plane ticket from an individual. Actually, he sent me two copies of tickets, one from Norman Wells to Yellowknife for one person, and the cost of that receipt or that ticket was $1,859 for a flight for roughly a little over an hour, I think it is. And then I got a copy of a ticket for Air North to fly from Yellowknife to Whitehorse, which is 2 hours for two people, and it was only about $630. So I wanted to ask if you could explain to me why different airlines have such a difference in cost, and I'm assuming that's the same as when it comes to freight.
So going into the Yukon, you can access it by road. All the communities that we serve, 25 of which are isolated, we are invested in everything that, in the infrastructure, maintenance, everything that comes with the airline industry. So we're not just doing a hub city one on a jet, we're also doing the ATR services that we accommodate to as an essential service. That cost cannot be completely subsidized by the jet service. We operate a jet and the ATR going into isolated communities, no road access to much of them. So offsetting the cost from there to be higher, we've had to make.
And the cost, your cost doesn't include carbon pricing on the fuel, because we're exempted, right? All three territories are exempted. Airlines, aviation fuel is exempted. So that's not factored in the equation, right?
No, it's not factored in the equation. And there we have the different fare structures. So 14-day advance purchase versus 7-day versus the day of are completely different. But we take into account all the other communities that we're serving, not just the hub cities.
I wanted to ask Dan McConnell a question about how he applies the subsidy in some of the communities. Is it a flat rate that you apply in terms of a percentage on the foods that qualify? I ask this question because I get complaints from the community of Fort Simpson, the community of Nahana Butte, where they have seasonal subsidies. So the community of Fort Simpson only receives subsidies during breakup and freeze up. But the store, one of your stores, applies the subsidy that they get, which is usually about a month for breakup, a month for freeze up. They take those savings and apply it across the board, I was told, for over a year. Is that correct? Am I understanding that?
So you'd have the mechanics are actually, it's prescribed for us. We get it, it's allocated to a product, and we just pass the amount right through to the customer. So as far as the mechanics behind it and the formulaic approach, you'd probably have to speak to the Nutrition North administration about that. But whatever we get, it's predetermined for the product, and we just pass it right through to the customer.
Because in those communities, there's huge spikes. You know, October comes and the river starts freezing up and everything has to come across with a helicopter. So there's a huge spike. And then the complaints start coming in because we don't see the subsidies increase with the freight costs. And it's the same in breakup, you know. So is there a way to kind of focus it on the times that the costs really are jumping way up and causing all kinds of problems?
Yeah, I think that would be a conversation with Nutrition North to understand how we can start to align it more to some of those peak periods. But again, we're just a flow through, so we don't We don't make the rules on how it gets administrated.
I wanted to ask about climate change and its impact on some of your costs. You know very well, last year we didn't even get a chance to take the buoys out of the river, and the river was drying out, so they pulled all the tugs out, and we couldn't move any of the freight. And this year looks like it's going to be even worse. You know, we're looking at maybe shutting down ferries, never mind the tugs that come up and down the river. So climate change is drying up our rivers in the north. And the Nahanni River, the Mackenzie River, the Hay River, they're all extreme historic lows. And do you expect that's going to cause you to require even more subsidy than what you're getting now in terms of the costs?
I'd say if we get just a brief answer, we're out of time, but I'll give you a response.
I would say the answer would be yes. And love to expand more, because I think that's not the only place of which climate change has impacted our business. There's a number of engineering and other things that have significant negative impacts on our infrastructure. Yes, within the communities we serve.
Great, thank you. We're going to go now to Monsieur Lemire, who will have 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. McConnell, I'll continue with you. Indigenous communities usually look for different kinds of solutions, and companies are trying to reinvent themselves and introduce new systems to get supplies in. So it's really disappointing to see fruit juice from Australia on your shelves rather than local or indigenous products. So what sort of place do you give to local products and products made in Canada?
Repeat that about Australia. What did you say?
Il y a du jus de l'Australie.
There's fruit juice from Australia on your shelves rather than giving that space to Canadian companies, Canadian products, Oasis being an example. And I'm just curious, why is it that the program that aims to feed Canada, Nutrition North, why should it not be highlighting Canadian products?
I'm not familiar with the Australian juice, but I can tell you that we absolutely go for the most economic products that we can to be able to pass on that value on to our customer. But if there's an Australian juice on there, I would imagine it's because it's selling, the customers are asking for it, and it's a cost-effective solution for us to offer.
Et quel plan?
Is there a purchasing policy within your company that could maybe favor the purchasing of Canadian products and short-circuit purchasing, for instance, or do you have practices that could favor Canadian products more?
We don't have it as in relation to Canadian products necessarily, but we do have it around Indigenous-led and managed companies, and we've had some really strong success around that. But as far as Canada, I mean, we're a proud Canadian company, so by all means, if there's all things being equal, we would definitely proceed with a Canadian company to be able to support that as best we can.
Et comme il est
Since it is hard to make a profit off of food in remote regions, especially in the north, should the Nutrition North Canada program be geared more towards Canadian companies? Should it be restructured to make it so that you have more Canadian products on your shelves and so that customers have lower prices on those products?
I think I would align with the second part of your statement. Is definitely should be geared towards having more affordable products for customers, wherever where the product comes from. I'm not sure that would align. I think the first mode of business should be getting more affordable product to customers within the north.
Okay, thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
We'll now go to Ms. Idloot for her last 2.5 minutes.
I'm not going to let you get away with keeping your salary a secret by only giving it to us in written form. According to the website, your annual salary is $3.91 million. According to websites as well, the annual salary for a cashier in Iqaluit is $37,000. So basically, your salary is 98 times higher than what your employees get. And that's what I want to leave with you. Give an example for that the poverty rate in Nunavut is almost 40%. The food insecurity rate is 46%. But I'm going to be asking my questions to Gary and to Shelley. The reason that I wanted each of your airlines to appear before our committee is so that you can hear directly from them, from retailers, about what their challenges might be, so that you can be given the opportunity to hear what solutions maybe that you can help try to provide, understanding that some groceries, for example, in Kimirut might be in a cargo place in Iqaluit for so long that when it finally lands in Kimirut, that it ends up going from the airport to the dump. Right? So I would like to give you guys this opportunity to find ways to give solutions so that groceries don't end up from airport going to the dump.
I can start with that. Nakutmi, Lori. Nakutmi, it's about you mentioned, Jean-Pierre mentioned that Canadian North does not fly into Kimirut, and it is because of the lack of airport runways. It is way too short for us to land there. It can only be landed by the Twin Otter. The infrastructure that we're landing into were built in the Cold War. There has been no investment in the airports in the north that we serve. We oftentimes cancel flights because of global warming, climate change. In January alone, we canceled a few flights going into Panittu because it was 4 degrees. Our runway was melting. We could not land. That's 2 days of not delivering any passengers, medical patients, or cargo. When crew duty has been a huge impact on our operations because we could operate at 6 o'clock. The pilots want to operate, unable to because of crew duty. That's 17,000 pounds of cargo that we could have moved in 2022, 2021 that we're unable to today, including the passengers that we have a backlog on because of the fact that we can't operate 2 flights a day.
I'd say briefly, we are near the, or at the end of the time, but Mr. Bell.
I appreciate that opportunity to respond to a really great question. Our oldest piece of freight on hand today is 3 days old, and it's chips. So we have a very sophisticated tracking system on our inventory. We make sure that that product is moved very quickly so we don't have the waste that you're talking about. We have warehouses in all of the communities we deliver to so that if we are recovering from weather disruptions, we can deliver 24/7, put it in there. The co-op managers have the keys to our warehouses so they can come get it when it's convenient for them the next day. And lastly, we have this system where we allow the movement of country foods throughout our network at no charge so that we can supplement what the stores are providing as well. So it's not to say that that's a holistic solution, but it's a great start.
We're out of time there. Mr. McConnell, you didn't
Chair.
get a chance to make a comment. I don't know if you want to on the, but we can leave it there, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you did want to.
That's okay.
Thank you. The time has gone very quickly, and so I would like to invite, if there's anything from the conversation, additional thoughts that you have that you'd like to send to us in writing, I would invite you to do that. And I know often members will have an additional question, so I was going to say, if you'd be open to it, we may gather some additional questions based on the conversation today that we could send to you. If you're able to provide a response, we would have it translated and distributed to our committee members, if you're open to having that conversation. So I'll see if the members have anything else they'd like to put through our clerk to our witnesses. Mr. Carr.
Mr. Chair, I would kindly ask Mr. Bell to submit some information just subsequent to the comment he made about a price. I believe he was referencing a Winnipeg to Churchill flight and the increased cost. Churchill does not service Nutrition North. It's not a community that is involved in that program. And beyond that, when we talk about northern communities, my understanding, Mr. Bell, unless I'm mistaken, is that there is an exemption on aviation fuel taxes in the territories as well as between provinces. So it'd be beneficial to the community and to the committee, rather, and members of the committee, if you could provide us with the numbers of information. Sorry?
we're getting
Okay,
in.
yeah, no problem. Mr. Bell, I'll follow up with you directly, but the committee will be asking for those numbers from you to provide evidence and substantiate the comments that you made. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for our witnesses for making time to come and speak with us today. It's been a very informative discussion. I'm sure we could have spent more time, but we do have the ministry here for the next hour. And so, colleagues, we're going to suspend at this point. We'll take 5 minutes. We'll get everybody set up, and then we'll resume with Minister Vandell. So we are now suspended. Welcome back, everyone. We are here for our second hour of questions and answers. And for the second hour on our Nutrition North discussion, first of all, I'd like to welcome Minister Dan Vandel, Minister of Northern Affairs, and also from Department of Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, Valerie Gideon, Deputy Minister. Welcome back. A familiar face at our committee. Georgina Lloyd, Assistant Deputy Minister, Northern Affairs, and Wayne Welsh, Director General, Northern Strategic Policy Branch, Northern Affairs. And I'm just going to also remind everybody who's coming, if this is the first time since we made changes to the setup in the room, we're asking people, when not using earpiece, to leave them face down on the circles that have been here to try and prevent audio feedback for the protection of our interpreters, and just try to keep the earpieces away from the microphone. With that, welcome, Minister, and when you're ready, we'll give you your 5 minutes for the opening statement. We'll then move into our rounds of questions. We should be able to get through 2 rounds of questions. And one of the reminders I'd like to just give to everybody, it's we try to keep questions and answers kind of equal, so if people are giving a long question, we'll give the Minister a long answer. And we'll try to balance it out that way. So with that, Minister, over to you for your 5-minute opening statement.
You hear that? Good evening, everybody. Bonjour, Udlakut, Kwekwe. Thank you for inviting me to discuss and to respond to your questions on food security in the North. Northern and isolated communities are especially impacted by higher costs of groceries, as food and other items have to travel long distances to get to their destination. I'm encouraged to be here today to discuss the federal government's strategy to help address food security in the North and the Arctic, including the Nutrition North Canada program and the ways we can all work together to make it work better. It was launched in 2011. Nutrition North is aimed at helping Northerners save on food and essential items. And since then, we've made significant investments to grow the program to better support Northerners, always in collaboration with our Northern partners and communities. Since its inception in 2011, the annual investment in Nutrition North has more than doubled, introducing expanded eligibility, new partnerships, and a suite of other measures to better address food insecurity. In Budget 24, we've committed an additional $23.2 million for Nutrition North subsidy program. And during my travel to northern communities, I have witnessed the high costs of food and spoken to community members about the impact the subsidy is having. There is room for improvement, but these subsidies are making a difference. This past February, the price of 18 large eggs in Kenait, Nunavut, would have been $14 without the subsidy. Instead, it was $7.99. In Aglulik, Nunavut, 4 liters of milk would have cost $42 compared to $5.69 with the subsidy. These are meaningful decreases in prices, but we know there is more to do and the program can be improved. I'm committed to ensuring 100% of the subsidy is passed on to consumers and will continue to engage with our partners in different communities to always ensure Nutrition North is as effective as it can be. We know that the subsidy alone isn't enough to support food security in the North, so we've also created the Harvesters Support Grant and the Community Food Programs Fund. Now, it's important to note these programs were co-developed with Indigenous and Northern partners to support culturally relevant harvesting and food sharing practices in 112 communities in the North. We've heard from partners that the design of these initiatives is working, and they are a very meaningful step to not only addressing food security but strengthening food sovereignty and collaboration between our government and Northerners. Since 2020, more than 15,000 harvesters have been supported with over 700 new food sharing initiatives, and 410 community hunts and harvests have taken place. In Manitoba, 2 large hunts with 11 hunters took place in Barren Lands First Nation, which provided more than 100 households with 1 caribou each. So to put that into perspective, that's between 175 pounds and 200 pounds of meat, not to mention the fur, the leather, and the other pieces that can be used from a caribou. Wassagamick First Nation and St. Teresa Point First Nation each participated in 20 fishing derbies and shared their catch with their communities. In Budget 24, we've allocated $101.1 million over the next 3 years to support the Harvester Support Grant and the Community Food Program so they can continue doing their good work. So Nutrition North is more than just a food subsidy program. It's also Harvester Support Grant, Community Foods Program. It's always evolving and seeking to improve programming by engaging directly with our northern communities. We have a Nutrition North Canada Advisory Group, an Indigenous Working Group, researchers, and Inuit Crown Food Security Working Group. We're all working together to keep food on the tables of the homes in the North and the Arctic. We have started an internal review of the retail subsidy program, after which an external audit of the program will take place. Additionally, with funding from the Food Security Research Grant portion of Nutrition North, we are supporting 5 Indigenous-led research projects that will inform program improvements as we move forward. So I'm looking forward to a very productive discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. And as we go through the discussion, I'll use my my flashcards here, with the yellow card being 30 seconds left and red time not, but don't stop mid-sentence, finish your thought, and then we'll move on to the next person. First up, for 6 minutes, we're going to go to Mr. Zimmer. And when you're ready, Mr. Zimmer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for coming again. We just heard from Northern Airline companies who said carbon tax has made fuel and food costs more expensive in the North. There's no question. And we know that other forms of transporting food by truck and by sea lift also carbon tax makes more expensive. And I'll quote from a recent article from...
Sorry, I'm just going to pause the clock here.
The
Ms. Idler?
interpretation.
We'll do a check on make sure the interpretation is working. Is it the English French that you're? We're good. Okay, you know what? Well, we'll pause to make sure that. Can you go and check, or do you have somebody that can? We'll get our team to see if we can make sure that it's working for you, because it's important to hear what's being said.
La traduction se fait bien en français, Monsieur le Président.
The French interpretation is working, Mr. Chair.
We'll do a check. Is the sound coming through now? Can you hear the on the volume? Is it okay? On English and French? Do test. Yeah, okay. Okay, we're good. So Mr. Zimmer, we'll go back to you, and I'll restart the clock, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister for coming to committee once again. We just heard from Northern Airline companies who said carbon tax has made fuel and food costs more expensive in the North. And we know that other forms of transporting food by truck or by sea lift costs more because of the carbon tax. From an article that you were interviewed by Nunatsiaq News, April 20th, 2024, says federal budget is about fairness, says Northern Affairs Minister. And this is from you. We are helping to make life costs less, and we're growing the economy in a way that's shared for everybody in Canada. I think we have to make sure this is a budget that promotes fairness for all generations, especially young people living in the North, and that's where we're going, Minister Vandal said. My questions to you, Minister, is paying $11.49 per kilogram or $3 per apple fair?
First of all, you mentioned the fuel tax and the carbon tax on fuel. It's important to note that There is
Sorry,
no,
Minister, it's a simple
there
question
is no-
about, I
there
asked
is
you a
no
question
price
about
just
fairness.
selection on
I'm going to stop
aviation.
the clock. It is going to be, we can't talk over each other, and
Yeah.
and-
But time
Yeah,
time
so-
is very short,
Yeah,
Mr.
absolutely.
Chair,
I've
and
stopped-
I asked him a
I-
simple question, is paying $11.49 per kilogram or $3 per apple fair? He can answer yes or no.
15
But
seconds.
that's not in the standing
answer.
orders. He doesn't have equal time to
No,
respond.
I had
I'm
asked.
asking a simple question, and I just would like a simple answer, Mr. Chair.
I'll give it to the minister, but it was a minute and 15 seconds.
Yeah,
in the-
I
It's
get
my
to
time,
answer for a
Mr.
minute.
Chair.
I should get to answer for a minute and 15
No, that's
seconds
not the
in a
way the
full
standing
summary
orders go.
to what you've
If I
said.
could offer that before
First
I
of
start
all-
the clock, we'll have the minister get to the point.
It's important
there
to
was some
clarify-
preamble there, and I think it's reasonable that we hear some preamble to
Yes,
his response.
it's important to clarify some of the falsehoods in his opening statement, because that's what they were. They were dead wrong. There is no price on pollution on aviation fuel in the territories.
That's
There
not what I
is no
said. I said
price
the
on
North,
pollution
Minister. I said
in
the North.
interterritorial
And you'd know that the
provincial
North,
travel.
we define by
There
Northern
is no
Manitoba.
price
and-
on
I'm gonna
pollution
stop.
in
Bob.
provincial travel.
Okay, well, I'd like to get back to my question because you're trying to pivot to say something
No,
that
no,
I'm not even asking
I'm
you.
correcting the falsehoods that you stated
It's not a-
in your preamble.
Yeah, so I'd,
I'm
yeah, I
stopping
said
the
the
clock.
North.
Bob, listen.
I said the North.
falsehoods that you
Okay, I'm going to
stated in
suspend
your
here if I have
preamble.
to. We can't have people speaking over each other. Okay, one person on the mic at a time.
So
And I
he's
get
already
that-
used up more time than I even used for my question by far.
it stopped.
And he's not giving the answer, and he's accusing me of falsehoods, which is false
Okay,
what he's
I'm going
doing.
to restart the clock, but I'm just saying that we can only have one person speaking. And so ask the question,
So I'm gonna-
allow the minister to have an answer, and then we can go back and forth.
I'm going to
in a
move to my
respectful
second
manner.
question because he hasn't answered my first. Is paying almost $9 for a can of tuna fair?
First of all, I've got to give some context to this. There is no price on pollution on aviation fuel in the territories.
And
There
you've said
is
that
no
already,
price on
Minister, and I've
pollution.
already said that there's goods come to the north in other ways, and the
the fellow-
territories in
the
other
fellow
ways that a
sitting
carbon
here-
tax does apply, by truck and by sea lift.
The fellow sitting here from Air North or Com Air gave the example of Winnipeg to Churchill.
Right.
Churchill is not a Nutrition North community. There's not
We're
one
talking
home
about
in
food
Churchill
affordability
that
in the north,
receives
so
a
he's
Nutrition
trying to
North subsidy.
go a different
So
direction.
It's null and void.
The affordability in the
Just a
north
sec,
is
I'm
what
gonna
we're talking
pause it
here.
Well, Mr. Zimmer.
The
I'm gonna
minister
ask
doesn't
you-
want to answer
Mr.
questions,
Zimmer?
and he hasn't before about
Oh,
this. He's trying to
Mr.
evade the question.
Mr. Zimmer, I'm asking you to stop, please.
You
We have a
completely
point
are.
of order. I need to hear from Mr. McLeod. Mr. McLeod.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know about the interpreters, but two voices on the microphone at the same time is impossible for me to follow with my headset. We have the guidelines here, and we got two people speaking at the same time.
Well, but Stan,
If there's a way that you can try to have one person speaking at a time, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for that reminder, and yes, that's good, not only for yourself, but to make a safe workplace for our interpreters. And so I'm going to go back to, Bob, I'm speaking, please, when my microphone's on, let me finish. And so I will let you ask a question, you'll have the floor, but please let the minister respond. And then when the minister is done, if you can, briefly, if you want to move to your next question, make it brief, but we can't have this talking. If I need to, I will ask the minister to wrap up and get back to you so you can continue. There's 3 minutes and 40 seconds left on your time, and so I'll ask you to continue.
well, 3 minutes, they've used up most of my time in just debating. He's not even answering the question. So I'm going to ask the third question because he refuses to ask the previous two. Is paying $13.29 for a 1 liter bottle of ketchup fair?
Of course, it's too expensive, but the Nutrition North program does do some good work. For example, I gave the example of a Glulik, 4 liters of milk should be $42. It was $5.69. To answer
So that was my question, and that was your answer. So I have another question. Okay, so I'll move on to the next point. So from a recent 2023 study, as I'm sure you're familiar with it, in 2020, Nunavut has the highest food insecurity rates in Canada at 57%, with a national average of 12.7%. That was from 2018. I have a recent document from the Nunavut Food Security Coalition that says nearly 70% of Inuit homes in Nunavut are food insecure. That means 70% of Nunavummiut are going hungry every day now. This rate is one of the highest rates for an Indigenous population in a developed country in the world, Minister. Clearly, Nutrition North and your department, you know, it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. And what I was trying to show people watching today, that we already have a crisis in the North for food affordability. People are going hungry. And then your government disregards those concerns and slaps another carbon tax on top of it. And to me, it just shows, Minister, that you're clearly not understanding what the needs are in the North. And my simple question to you, why won't you actually help Northerners and axe the carbon tax?
First of all, the carbon tax is a canard. I just pointed that out to you. Food insecurity is a critical issue in the North. We are working with Northern partners. We're working with Indigenous leaders, territorial partners to try to address it. But to think that the Nutrition North program alone is going to solve poverty in the world is unrealistic. We are trying to make reasonable steps in the North, in the Nunavut, and I think there's been progress in the Nutrition North program, but there's lots of work to do. There's lots of work.
So my time is very short. And my question was actually in reference to Nutrition North not working, but my question to you actually was, why won't you actually help Northerners and axe the carbon tax?
I answered you. There is no carbon tax on aviation fuel in the territories.
That's not. But I answered you back.
You cannot
you would
deny
know.
that.
You would know. You would actually know that a carbon
stop
tax
food
applies to
insecurity.
trucking, to diesel, to truck food to the north, and to
there's no
sea
roads
lift
in
fuel
Nunavut.
to get
Okay, we have
sea
way
lift
too many
of food
people
talking.
to the
No roads
north.
in Nunavut.
You would know that.
Bob.
Point d'ordre, Monsieur le Président, l'interprétation ne se...
Point of order, Chair, there's no interpretation.
Talking. So when I ask people to stop talking, I need you to do that. So
Well, Minister, it's my sorry, Mr. Chair, it's my time, not the minister's. I'm
Well,
trying to get more
but
questions
the
in,
point is-
and he's delaying this deliberately because he doesn't want to answer a question about carbon tax. He knows that.
No, I'm going to ask both of you to stop for a moment. I can't have control of the meeting when people's microphones are on and people aren't talking. So when my mic is on, I need you to stop. We'll have an orderly discussion here. And I'm trying as well, and the minister's trying as well. He's trying to answer questions, and so
He's trying to answer in his way. He's not answering my question. It's clear he's not answering my question.
Okay, my mic is on, and I can't have anybody else's on when my mic is on. So you had a question there, and we're down to, I was giving the yellow card 30 seconds left. I'll turn it to the minister to provide a response. Did you have a final question, Mr. Zimmer, so we can look at the time? Okay, so why don't we go to your final question, knowing that there's 30 seconds for the question and the response, and then I will give the minister time at the end of your question for his response, and then we'll move on to the next question. So let's get the question out, and then we'll have the minister respond.
Nearly 70% of families in Nunavut are going hungry every day. Why won't you axe the carbon tax?
We are doing Nutrition North. We're here to talk about Nutrition North. We're going to make improvements to Nutrition North to try to get that number down. But I think we need a wider strategy that includes the federal government, certainly the territorial governments, Indigenous governments, Inuit, and the community, the wider community to address food insecurity in the North and in Canada.
Question, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's the end of the first 6-minute question. We're going to go now to this side, and Mr. Carr, you're up for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Minister, I will give you some time perhaps to clarify a few of the points. Perhaps you would like to just spend a moment briefly acknowledging the aspect of the question from my colleague around the way in terms of aviation fuel. Can you just clarify that for us in terms of what the federal government's policy is vis-a-vis aviation fuel?
Well, first of all, that's an excellent question. I know the previous witness from ComAir talked about the huge impact of the price on pollution from Winnipeg to Churchill. It's important to note Churchill is not a nutrition community that receives Nutrition North. It never has been, and so that whole example, I think, is null and void. There is no price on pollution on aviation fuel in the territories. There is no price on pollution on aviation fuel that goes from the provinces to the territories or from intra-provincial travel. It is only within the provinces that there is a price on pollution. And the reality is there's been all sorts of studies that have been done that says the price on pollution's effect on food inflation is negligible. I think that answers your question, and I'll wait for another one.
Yeah, if I may add a little bit, Minister, I've had the pleasure of sitting on the Agriculture Committee for the past number of months, so I've actually been exposed to a fair amount here because we did a study on food price inflation, how to stabilize food prices. There are a couple things I thought I would just bring to your attention, the attention of the committee, that was talked about quite frequently there. One is data from the OECD. In 2023, it's a little dated, but it's still relevant in that it shows that food price inflation in the United States and in Canada were the two lowest in the G7. They were on par, virtually on par, a little bit lower in the United States. So my question has always been, perhaps you can reflect on this during my little preamble here, how is it that in one jurisdiction, the United States, where there is no national carbon pricing policy, that the cost of food is the same as it is in a federal jurisdiction like Canada, where there is a national carbon pricing system? Seems to me that the United States would be substantially different and more advantageous if a carbon price was in fact driving it. The second is, and perhaps more recent, we have data compiled by the Library of Parliament using Statistics Canada information that very clearly shows us that in the last 18 months, there has been a sharp decline in food price inflation across Canada. Now, at the same time, there has been an increase in the price on pollution. So how is it then, Minister, that there, at a time when the carbon price has increased, and albeit it's important to note that as that price has increased, so too have rebates to Canadians, but how is it that as the carbon price has increased, there has been a steady decline? And I see that there is some smirking from my colleagues across the way. I will show them that information either during this meeting or after. I'd gladly table it for the committee to look at. This is Statistics Canada and Library of Parliament information. This isn't anecdotal. I will gladly show it, Mr. Shields. I will gladly show it. But, Minister, if I may, I do want to turn for a moment, and please do feel free to comment on that, but you have shared several times that the Government of Canada is committed to ensuring 100% of grocery subsidies are passed on to Northerners from this program. Can you talk to us a little bit about the accountability measures that are currently in place to ensure that Nutrition North programs directly benefit Northerners?
First of all, excellent point, and I commend the Agriculture Committee for doing that great work. I think the whole issue with that the Conservative Party has with the price on pollution is just it's slogan based. It's not based in rationality, and if you take a real hard look at the facts, that their slogans unravel very easily. Back to Nutrition North, because this is a Nutrition North meeting. We established the Nutrition North Compliance Audit Review Committee, which consists of members from our advisory board of Nutrition North, the Indigenous Working Group, as well as regional representatives from the Inuit Food Security Working Group. And more so than that, more than that, we've also established the Food Security Research Grant several years ago as part of Nutrition North, whereby we will fund researchers who want to do research work on food insecurity in the North, to come up with better ideas, new ideas to address that, or to give us some research on how we can make our programs more effective and more efficient to address food insecurity. Having said all that, food insecurity, food inflation in the North is a huge issue. We have to do a better job, and we are going about it earnestly, rolling up our sleeves, forming partnerships, talking and collaborating with partners from the territories and Indigenous governments, and that's not going to stop.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. We're going to go now to Monsieur Lemire, who will have 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minister, thank you for being with us. I would like to know a bit more about the steps you're taking, especially when it comes to capacity issues, capacity for Indigenous communities. Have you thought about increasing Indigenous communities' capacities to help them with fruit and then the vegetables and the all of the other products that they can obtain through hunting and gathering and fishing activities? Are you making sure that the needs of the Indigenous communities are being properly analyzed and looked into? And can you envisage maybe increased financing, especially at the level of infrastructure and equipment for Indigenous communities, so that they can be better equipped to feed themselves, and that would have impact on prices and consumption? Thank you very much for this very good question. That is something very important for our government, to work in partnership with Indigenous governments. And a number of years ago, we introduced a harvester support grant as part of Nutrition North. This program subsidizes Indigenous groups in the North to help them, to encourage them financially. And we're trying to have more hunters, more fishers, more gatherers, harvesters rather, in the North. That is something that we're developing in partnership with our Indigenous partners in Nunavut and possibly in Nunavik. And a lot of good work has been done on that front. Last February, to date, or rather by 2020, we already had 15,000 harvesters that had received support. And we introduced hundreds of food sharing initiatives, more than 400 hunting and harvesting parties organized. So we remain in touch with our partners, and we are organizing these initiatives together, and we hope to do more projects together. That is a step in the right direction. So I always ask myself the question to know how these programs could be implemented for the communities. Sometimes money remains unspent and goes back to the public coffers. So we also know where the needs are. Can the government be a bit more active in terms of accompanying communities to build greenhouses so that they can produce fresh produce? Because these are being flown in as we speak. But are there other solutions? Because if eggs can be offered at a certain reasonable price, then it wouldn't be worth the effort to fly in chicken and then create heated infrastructure. But on the other front, can you talk to us about infrastructure that can be built? Well, if you go back to the Harvester Support Program, to date, or rather over the past 3 years, we've added $100 million to the budget for this program so that we can continue the program. So our thinking is that by working together, we can build the food infrastructure in the North. Greenhouses while there are good examples in Northwest Territories, I was in Iqaluit. We also visited greenhouses in old hockey fields, hockey rinks, where they were producing a lot of fresh and affordable food, which is, of course, great for the community. So we are developing partnerships and projects with the local community so that they take ownership of these initiatives. And that's how they are producing. So thank you for responding in French. I really appreciate that. Would you be able to make community kitchens eligible for permanent and sustainable funding so that these communities are less dependent on food items that are flown in from the south? So could you rely more on community kitchen programs? Once again, that is the thinking behind the community food program. We are working in schools. We are working in care homes so that we introduce sustainable solutions with good food that is nutritious. We're simply trying to establish relations, work together, sit at the same table, and our officials are really working hard on these types of solutions. Thank you. You will have the support of the Bloc Québécois to continue these initiatives. That is one of the best answers I received so far. Thank you.
It is your turn for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank you personally, Dan, for inspiring the study, because it has been the lack of responses that you've been giving to me since I've been elected that we've come to this point. I asked my staff to look up how many times I've asked you questions in the House and how many times I've asked OPQ questions, and none of the responses that you have provided have been any at all helpful to inform my constituents what Nutrition North is doing to alleviate poverty. This Liberal government, as part of its effort to stabilize prices, invited grocery corporations like Loblaws to discuss what they're doing to lower prices. My first question to you, Minister, is have you advised the Deputy Prime Minister and the Industry Minister to meet with the Northwest Company?
Listen, we talk as members of Cabinet regularly on the importance of food security, the importance of
Can you answer
affordability.
my question, please?
I am answering your question on the importance of affordability in the food security area. I know that we are all on the same page, whether it's the Industry Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, or the Prime Minister, on addressing this important issue. I think it's important to note in Budget 2024, there's over $100 million for the
I'm going to interrupt you. I don't have enough time, but by your response, I'm going to infer that you did not advise the Deputy Prime Minister and the Industry Minister to meet with the Northwest Company. We've been here. I've been alarmed to hear that this government is giving millions to companies who make $200 million in profits. We learned today, for example, that the Northwest Company CEO makes $3.91 million. Your Liberal government is subsidizing the Northwest Company. How will you make sure that this Nutrition North is actually improving? I've been asking over and over again for reform, and your final response to me was to provide an internal review. Why do my residents not deserve an audit from the Auditor General? Why did you respond with an internal review?
With all due respect, Lori, you're only giving half my answer there. First of all, I told you how important affordability in the North is. I also informed you that we were doing an internal review. We have funded 5 research projects on Nutrition North that are Indigenous-led, which are very interesting, and we will do an external audit once the internal review is done. You've never said the last part of what I've just mentioned on the external audit. You've only tweeted that I answered an internal review. So you're giving.
Yes.
We have these conversations. They're good conversations, but then you report only half of our conversation.
It is really unfortunate that you're choosing to ignore my direct request to you for an audit from the Auditor General. It really is. Unfortunately, based on your responses and your unwillingness to make sure that my constituents get the answers that they deserve, are we being forced to ask these kinds of direct questions. I'm going to ask you a similar question that I asked to the Northwest Company. I was in Kimmirut last March, and I took 2 photos, one at the local co-op and one at the Northern store, both of which used the Nutrition North program. In that one day, in that one community, the price of eggs was at the co-op $3.99, and at the Northern store it was $6.49. Why is it that co-op is able to successfully use it, and why is it that Northern store is not?
That's an excellent question. I think that's why we work with there's an internal compliance. That's why we're working together on that now. That's why we're doing the internal review, and that's why we're going to do an external audit once this is done. I'm 100% committed that 100% of the subsidy will go to consumers, to go to people who actually buy and need the food in the North. And I've told you that many times. And I'll continue to say that because it's really our commitment, our government's commitment, my commitment. And I can say that I've had good conversations with some of the researchers who are doing this grant. They've raised some very valid questions, but all of them have also said that Nutrition North is doing good work. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I'm going to repeat this because obviously Nutrition North is not working when the poverty rate in Nunavut is almost 40% and the food insecurity rate is 46%. We are not looking for complete solutions. We are looking for solvable solutions. And with this Liberal government, you are not doing what you can to make sure that poverty is being alleviated, not when these rates are that high. Not when there's a difference between a co-op store offering $3.99 for a dozen eggs and the Northern store in the same community on the same day is pricing it at $6.49, and that same company is profiting over $200 million.
Okay, we're out of time, but Minister, I'll give you the opportunity for a brief response.
I agree with MP Laut that it's a shame that the poverty rate and the is as high. It's more than a shame. It's horrible, and Nutrition North will certainly work hard to do its part. But I think that one program in one department of the government will solve poverty in Canada or in the North is unrealistic. It's got to be a whole of government approach. Territorial governments have to be involved, Indigenous governments have to be involved, and community leadership needs to be involved. We're committed to keep working in that way.
Thank you. We'll now move to the Conservative side, and Mr. Melillo, you're going to take the 5-minute questions, so the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. Minister, what is the mandate of Nutrition North?
The mandate of Nutrition North is to support food security in isolated communities, in northern communities, and to make sure that the people living there have nutritious and affordable food, country food, local food, and market
food. Thank you, Minister.
food.
I think that was a very simple question, and I appreciate the answer.
Limit?
Do you feel, Minister, that under your watch, Nutrition North Canada has been successful in fulfilling its mandate?
I think Nutrition North has made some good progress in certain areas. I'll cite the Harvester Support Grant. There's questions outstanding on the retail subsidy, and I think there's always room for improvement.
So, in short, no, it hasn't been successful, and I think that the information would show that. We see high rates of food insecurity each year. You increase funding. You noted that funding for the program has more than doubled, but each year food insecurity continues to rise, Minister. So you continue to throw more and more money at the issue, but it's getting worse. Is that not failure, in your opinion?
I think there's issues in the north, which is why we're bringing forth a whole suite of programs like $10 day daycare, dental care, affordable housing, and that member and his whole team have continually voted against all the affordability measures we've brought forward.
And we're going to continue to vote against the disastrous economic policies of your government, Minister, that have driven up the cost of living and made it very expensive for people across the north, not just in the territories, but in the northern provinces as well. Minister, again, this is...
has the...
Thank you, Minister. I didn't ask you a question there. So, Minister, I believe I still have the floor.
Of all G7 countries in the world.
Although I'm going to ask the Minister, I'll just stop the clock. You still have 3 minutes. But to have the Minister provide a brief response, there was a comment.
I don't think I asked I wasn't asking a question yet.
There was no question?
If I can ask my question.
Stop the clock. We'll then ask you to continue with your questions, and when the Minister has the floor, he can respond.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister, I appreciate your eagerness to respond to my question before it came, but I just I want to expand on this because under your watch, this program is not working. It's very clear. The evidence shows that the cost of living is exorbitant in the north. This committee has previously submitted reports asking for the mandate of Nutrition North Canada to be changed to include food insecurity as a direct part of that mandate. And Minister, it doesn't seem like you've really taken the issue seriously to address those concerns that we've raised in reports dating back to 2021 and even before. You can comment.
No, that's absolutely not true. I've just explained not 5 minutes ago that Nutrition North's mandate is to work with isolated northern communities to make sure they get affordable and nutritious food, country food and other types of food from make sure that consumers, that the people in the north have access to that food. That is addressing food insecurity. I think there's been some good developments, but there's lots of work to do.
The last thing we need, there certainly is lots of work to do, Minister. I appreciate
your government.
I appreciate that. I believe it's been answered. If I may ask my next question.
I've stopped it, but it had a concluding thought there. If you don't want to hear it, then we'll go back to your question.
I'm good to continue with my next question, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. Again, I'm sure you can appreciate we have limited time. So 28 First Nations in Ontario, including 22 in the Kenora District, which I represent, utilize Nutrition North. They're also subject to the carbon tax. Minister, I know you don't want to talk about the carbon tax at this meeting, but it's important that to note that this is impacting the First Nations across Northern Ontario, and 133 First Nations through the Chiefs of Ontario have actually sued your government, arguing that the carbon tax is discriminatory and breaches the principles of reconciliation, leaving their communities worse off. So what is it going to take? Why doesn't your government just simply axe the tax to make life more affordable for First Nations in Northern Ontario and people right across the country?
It's been demonstrated time and again that the price on pollution has minimal effects on food inflation. It's by economists, by other people working in the industry. Why the Conservative Party has this fetish on carbon tax time and again is something that I certainly can't explain. Only they can explain. And they continually to vote against every single measure we bring forward to enhance affordability for middle-class families.
Minister,
and that's something that's simply irrational.
Thank you, Minister. So, again, the Chiefs of Ontario are saying that the carbon tax is a discriminatory policy. Do you disagree with them?
First of all, this is a discussion on Nutrition North, not the price on pollution.
At the very least, Minister, would you and your government commit to passing Bill 234 in its original form to take the carbon tax off of farmers and farm families to make food more affordable for all Canadians.
Alors, Monsieur le Président, il n'y a plus
time here,
d'interprétation.
and
Mr. Chair, we don't have interpretation.
issue with multiple microphones being on, which creates a problem for everyone to participate. But that's the end of the 5 minutes. I'm going to go to Mr. McLeod next for, we'll start his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister for joining us, and very interesting discussion on Nutrition North. I've been involved in these discussions for quite a few years. I used to be a minister with the government of Northwest Territories, and one of my files was, one of my responsibilities was dealing with the transition from food mill to Nutrition North, and we had many interesting discussions then also. But at that time, the Conservative government was in power, and they were trying to kick all our communities off the list. So we have 14 communities now, but at that time it was reduced down to 8. And we were struggling to convince the government of the day, which was the Conservatives, to keep the program and to keep the communities that we had that were isolated on the list. So it was very challenging. The program was underfunded. It didn't have any avenue for input, for advice. So I'm very happy that now we've made some progress. I have a number of communities that probably would not exist if we didn't have this program. There's room for improvement, but the budget has certainly increased significantly. We have an advisory board that provides advice to yourself and others on the program. But it's important to recognize that this is an important tool, but it doesn't address the root cause of food insecurity in the North. And, I think we need to all agree that in order to have healthy and affordable food over the long term, we've got to do more. And more work has to be done to address the root causes. We need to talk about local and food that's harvested within our communities, in our regions. We need to talk about climate change. How much bigger can this program get? Because I have communities that are losing the water access, barges that can't get in anymore, ferries that are not going to run. This is all reality. The waters are drying up in our rivers and our lakes. And, at the time when we were talking about the new Nutrition North program, which is quite a few years ago now, we all assumed in the Northwest Territories that we would have roads to each community. We would have proper runways. We would have longer runways so the planes could land with a full load of freight. But we're not quite there yet. So I wanted to ask you if that is part of the discussion you have at Cabinet and part of the considerations to make the program better when you look at options. Are you talking to other departments? Or are you including all these things to make things better?
That's a fantastic question, MP McLeod, and I thank you for it. Food insecurity, food inflation are caused by many, many different variables. First of all, isolation. Isolation is expensive. Supply chain unpredictability, transportation issues, lack of infrastructure, and of course, climate change. I was in Iqaluit a few days ago with Minister Blair and Joly and the 3 premiers. And we had some really, and of course Yvonne Jones, Yvonne Jones was there, parliamentary secretary to Minister Blair and myself. And we had some really great discussions on just what you're talking about. I talked to the Premier over breakfast on the Mackenzie Valley Highway and what we need to do to actually bring it to the next level. It's an incredibly expensive highway to build, but we have to do it, especially with the Northern Defense money we're going to be rolling out. Now, there's never been a better time than to do just that. And that's just one small area of the North, which is massive. We need to invest. And I think it's important to point out that we need to invest on many different fronts while enhancing programs like Nutrition North in the short term. But I agree, it's a short-term Band-Aid over a problem that we have to get ahead of.
Thank you. Colleagues, that's the end of the time on that one. We are at the end of our 2 hours, but I do want to allow Monsieur Lemire and Ms. Idlout to have their 2.5 minutes. So we're going to move right into it, and we'll be tight, and then we'll adjourn. So, Monsieur Lemire.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Très apprécié.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate that decision. Mr. Minister, we've heard from an Indigenous cooperative about how hard it is to make ends meet. But, of course, the principle here is to take families out of poverty. And the relationship between northern communities and the lands that they live on is also very precious and important. But one of the aspects mentioned by the representative of the cooperative was land transport, surface transportation, and then storage, refrigerated storage. In Quebec, for instance, the Billy Diamond Road is used to transport fresh produce. So we need short-circuit local networks, and that would also bring down the costs. Would you not agree? Thank you for the very good question. It is absolutely essential that we strengthen our efforts and build infrastructure in remote communities. And we have to do a better job of building roads and infrastructure so that we can keep food in cold chain and in healthy conditions. I visited a location in Nunavut where they have an underground refrigeration system. So we need this type of systems everywhere across the Great North, but we don't have enough of these. But this isn't something that can be transported from Ottawa. We need local partners. I can give you an example because we don't have a lot of time. In Abitibi-Témiscamingue, we don't have slaughterhouses because there is no program. The federal government doesn't have a program to build slaughterhouses. So we can reach out to Inuit and Cree communities by plane, but we don't have the local production capacity. Our animals have to do 8 hours of driving on trucks, essentially, to reach a slaughterhouse. So you could maybe reach out to your minister, colleague Minister of Finance, to develop these infrastructures. But before going to Minister Freeland, maybe you can talk to me because I'm also in charge of the Northern Development Agency. We can take a coffee and talk about those. Thank you.
Now for your 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I'll be asking my questions to Wayne Walsh. Thank you for appearing. How many years have you been in this position that you're holding?
I was appointed in this position January 2016.
2016?
Yep.
So you've been in charge of the nutrition program since 2016?
Among other things, yep.
In an interview with CBC, that's where I first saw you when Fifth Estate interviewed you about the Nutrition North program. One of the things that was mentioned was that maybe it was one of the research projects that this Nutrition North program funded, found that only 67 cents of the dollar are going towards the subsidy. Can you describe more information about that finding?
So that report that you referred to was done by Professor Galloway. It was published, I believe it was 2018, 2019. We are, with all academic reports, look at the findings. There was another report that was also recently published by Professor Naylor at Guelph University, and his findings found that 100% or near was 97% of the pass-through went through. So there's obviously some discrepancies between the two reports. We're looking at it and doing the analysis.
Thank you. In that same documentary, you were asked about the profits that are being made, 119 million in profits, with 67 million going towards the subsidizing the Northwest Company. In your response, you mentioned that it is up to the consumers to decide whether it's acceptable or not, because they can choose on their own. Do you stand by that statement that you made in the Fifth Estate?
So the question that was proposed to me was asking my opinion as to the appropriateness level of the profit margins by a particular company. My responsibility under Nutrition North is to ensure that the program is delivered based on the terms and conditions of the program. The one thing I will add is we do recognize competition is an issue and in many of the communities, and that's why we've expanded the program to include active measures like direct ordering, which I believe some of the CEOs referred to this morning or this afternoon as competitors. So we have introduced other measures to give those consumers a choice. That's not necessarily just retail. It could be direct orders. It could be buying clubs. It could be, investments that they make under the community food fund, et cetera.
Thank you. I have to
We're out of
interrupt you.
time there, Ms.
Have you
Edlund.
been to the community of Clyde River?
Okay, so colleagues, thank you. Thank you to our witnesses for being here, Minister and officials. It's always a pleasure to see you. Colleagues, have a safe break week. When we're back, we're here on May 22nd with two panels of ministers and officials for Maine Estimates 2024-25. And with that, we are adjourned.